She came here for what was left, my mother said into the microphone, and 36 people in the fellowship hall went quiet. She said it at my grandmother's memorial in Chillicothe, Ohio, while I was still holding the florist receipt for $268.42 in my coat pocket. Within 3 weeks, I was getting collection calls for a storage unit I had never rented, a contract with my forged signature on it, and a demand for $4,380 tied to my name. Then a woman I had never met stood up in a room full of my relatives and read one sentence off a gate log, and my father stopped in the middle of saying my name. Before I go on, please take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if you genuinely connect with this story. And drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and what time it is there. I always love seeing where you're all listening from. My name is Kimberly Ann Mercer. I'm 24 years old now. Let me take you back to Chillicothe, Ohio, on Saturday, March 16, 2024. My grandmother's memorial was at Trinity Fellowship on North Paint Street, the brick church with the low white steeple and the basement hall that always smelled faintly like coffee grounds, lemon cleaner, and damp winter coats. It started at 1 in the afternoon. By 12:40, every folding chair was filled, plus a row along the wall near the coat rack. My grandmother, Evelyn Mercer, had lived in Ross County for 78 years and knew half that county by first name. My mother, Denise Mercer, had on a navy dress with pearl buttons and my grandmother's gold cross necklace. My father, Thomas Mercer, wore the same gray suit he had worn to my cousin Jared's wedding in 2021. My older brother, Luke, stood near the guest book table looking solemn in the practiced way he had perfected by age 16. If you had never met us, you would have thought we were one of those tightly composed families people trust on sight. I was the one who had paid for the flowers because my mother said she could not bear one more administrative task right now. Those were her words on the phone on March 12th at 8:14 in the morning. I remember because I was in the break room at work, eating dry Cheerios out of a paper cup before my shift at the dental office on East Main. I paid for the standing spray, the smaller arrangement for the casket table, and the printed memorial cards because someone needed to. $268.42 on my Visa. I still have the receipt. The service itself was controlled. That is the word for my mother when she is most dangerous, controlled. She cried at the exact right places. She thanked the pastor. She touched my arm once in front of other people, just enough to look maternal. Then, after the closing prayer, when everyone moved downstairs for the luncheon, she asked for the microphone to say one small thing as a family. If you have ever had that moment where your body knows before your mind does that something is about to split open, you know what I mean when I say I felt cold before she spoke, not nervous cold. The other kind, the kind where your hearing sharpens. She stood near the sheet cake and said, "I want to thank everyone who came to honor my mother. Family means showing up for the person, not the possessions. Kimberly only showed up because she wants what is in storage." The room went quiet so fast I could hear the compressor on the church refrigerator kick on behind the kitchen door. 36 people. I counted later from the sign-in book and the extra chairs. My Aunt Colleen looked down at her plate. My cousin Mara froze with the plastic serving spatula in her hand. Pastor Reed cleared his throat and looked at the floor. My father did not interrupt. He stood with one hand over the other, staring at the coffee urn like he was waiting out weather. I said, "That is not true." My mother turned to me with that careful expression she uses when she wants the room to think she is being generous. "This is not the place," which is how she always did it. She created the place, then told me not to respond in it. I left 10 minutes later with the smell of ham rolls and instant coffee stuck in my throat. In the parking lot, my cousin Mara followed me out and said very softly, "I'm sorry." Then she added, "They emptied Grandma's apartment fast. I thought you knew." I said, "What do you mean storage?" She looked panicked immediately. I should not have said that. But she had, and once she had, I could not unknow it. I drove home to my apartment on Consumer Center Drive with my hands locked at 10 and 2 on the steering wheel like I was taking a road test. I did not call my mother. I did not call my father. Instead, I opened a note in my phone at 2:27 in the afternoon and typed exactly what had been said, who was in the room, what time the line happened, and what Mara had whispered in the parking lot. I took a picture of the florist receipt and saved it in a new folder called March Memorial. That is how this started, with one sentence into a microphone and one folder on my phone. My grandmother had died on March 9th. She had lived the last 4 years in an apartment at Maple Grove Senior Residences, Building B, Unit 212. It was clean and bright and always smelled like Pond's cold cream and cinnamon tea. After she died, I expected there would be sorting, decisions, maybe arguments over dishes or photo albums. What I did not expect was that by the time of her memorial, My parents had already cleaned out her entire apartment, moved everything somewhere else, and built a story where I was greedy enough to come after it. On Tuesday, March 19th, at 6:12 in the evening, I found out how much farther they had gone. I was standing barefoot in my kitchen, rinsing romaine in a colander, when my phone rang from an 800 number. I almost ignored it, but I had been waiting on a callback about a second job interview for weekends at a dermatology front desk in Circleville, so I answered. A woman said, "Is this Kimberly A. Mercer?" I said yes. She said, "This is Angela from Midland Portfolio Recovery calling about the Buckeye Secure Storage account ending in 7142. We have a balance of $4,380.06. Are you calling to make a payment today?" I actually laughed because for one stupid second I thought she had the wrong person. "I think you have the wrong number." There was keyboard clicking, then she read my old address on South Watt Street, the one I had left in August of 2023, and the last four digits of my social. "This is tied to a rental contract signed December 21st, 2023, Unit C-17 at Buckeye Secure Storage, 198 Marietta Road, Chillicothe." I turned off the faucet. I said, "I have never rented a storage unit." She did not sound skeptical. She sounded bored. "Then you need to dispute it with the facility. We were assigned the balance after 90 days delinquent." The room got small around me. Lettuce and water and the hum of my refrigerator, all of it suddenly too loud. I wrote everything down on the back of a grocery receipt. Angela, 6:12 p.m., Buckeye Secure Storage, Unit C-17. Contract date December 21st. Balance $4,380.06. She gave me the facility number. I called immediately. The manager there was a man named Victor Sandoval. He had a flat voice and a habit of inhaling sharply before every sentence. I remember that because I was trying so hard not to panic that I noticed stupid things. I told him there had to be a mistake. He said, "The contract is in your name, Ms. Mercer. We have a copy of your driver's license and an electronic signature." I said, "Email me everything." He hesitated for just half a second. "We usually do not send contract files without identity verification," I said. "What would you like me to verify on an account you say is mine?" Another inhale, "Your middle name." "Anne," he said, "one moment." The email hit my inbox at 6:29. The contract was for a 10 by 15 climate-controlled unit. Monthly rent, $290. Administrative fee, $39. Lock fee, $18. Protection plan, $12 per month. There was a copy of my old driver's license attached, front and back. The signature on the contract was a bad version of mine, close enough to pass if you were not me, but wrong in all the ways that matter. I make my K like a printed letter with a hard angle. Whoever signed that made it looped. My last name leaned uphill. Mine slopes slightly down. There was also an emergency contact listed. Thomas Mercer, my father. Same cell number he had had since I was in middle school. I read it 3 times. Then I scrolled to the move-in page. Gate code assigned December 21st at 3:48 p.m. unit. Access December 21st at 4:12 p.m., 4:40 p.m., and 5:06 p.m. I was at work during all 3. I knew because December 21st had been our office holiday luncheon. I had 23 selfies and group pictures in my camera roll from that day, time-stamped between noon and 5:30, plus a Secret Santa video where my coworker Tasha handed me a candle warmer and called me the only organized person here. That is the first moment I knew I was not crazy. Not the comforting kind, the practical kind, the kind with timestamps. I called my mother at 6:41. She did not answer. I called my father. He picked up on the 3rd ring. I said, "Why is there a storage unit in my name?" Silence. Not long, 3 seconds maybe. Then he said, "Your mother is in no condition for this." I said, "Did you forge my name on a contract?" He lowered his voice into that reasonable tone he used when I was little, and he wanted me to feel childish. "Kimberly, your grandmother's lease was ending. Things had to be moved quickly. We intended to sort it out. You're making this uglier than it needs to be," I said. "You used my name," he said. "It is family property. It was temporary." I wrote while he spoke, March 19th, 6:41 p.m. Dad admitted temporary use. Said family property, said things had to be moved quickly, I asked. "Did you use my license too?" He said, "Your mother had a copy from the church directory. Do not act as if a copy of your license is a state secret. There are moments that divide your life into before and after." That sentence was one. I said, "I want everything paid off and my name off that unit tonight." He gave a small, tired exhale. "That is not possible tonight." I said, "Then I will handle it." He said, "Kimberly." Just my name. Like a warning, I hung up. That night I made a real folder. Not on my phone, on my dining table. Manila files, sticky notes, blue tabs, contract call log, screenshots from my work holiday party, proof of my location, the florist receipt, and a page titled Timeline. I did not cry. I did not call my brother. Instead, I zoomed in on the signature line until my own name looked like a stranger's. I had been keeping that folder for less than 4 hours, and it already felt older than me. Now let me take you back to Wednesday, March 20th, at 7:30 in the morning, in the parking lot outside Fairfield Family Dental. I had my coffee in a travel mug, and my work badge clipped to my scrub top when my phone rang again. This time it was Buckeye Secure Storage. A woman introduced herself as Leah Kincaid, assistant manager. Her voice was younger than Victor's and less guarded. She said, "Ms. Mercer, Victor asked me to follow up. He wanted me to confirm whether you wanted the auction process paused for 10 days while you dispute the account." That word hit me in the chest, auction. My grandmother's things. Her cedar chest, the blue glass candy dish, the recipe box with the bent lid. All of it sitting behind a roll-up door under my name, waiting to be sold to strangers because my parents had not paid the bill. I said yes, please pause it. She said, I can do 10 days, but after that, if there's no payment or ownership transfer, it goes back to lien status automatically. I wrote it down. 10 days. March 30th deadline. Then I asked the question that mattered. Is there video from move-in day? She hesitated. There is some, but our front camera cycles over every 30 days. What about gate records? We keep those longer. I said, please do not delete anything on that unit. There was a small pause, then she said quietly, I will note the file. That mattered more than she knew at 10:17 that morning. While I was checking in a patient named Mr. Browder for a Crown consult, my office manager came to the desk and said, Kimberly, can you step into my office for a second? Her name was Sonia Patel, 42, calm in all emergencies. She shut the door behind me and held up a pink message slip. Someone from a collections company called here looking for you. I felt heat climb my neck, she said. I told them we do not take personal calls like that through the main line. Do you need anything from me? That was the first institutional consequence, small but real. They had my workplace number because someone had given it to them. I knew exactly who, I said. My parents put a bill in my name. I can prove it. Sonia nodded once. No pity, just assessment. Email me whatever you need on your lunch break in case this escalates. I almost cried then, but I did not. Support feels different when you're used to being handled instead of helped. At 12:42, I pulled the updated contact sheet from the storage file. There it was. Employer name, Fairfield Family Dental, work number. Added March 10th at 9:11 a.m., the day after my grandmother died. I had not given that to anyone there. My father had. He knew it because he had dropped off soup at my office once after I had my wisdom teeth out. That afternoon, I called my mother again, and this time she answered. The sound behind her was TV and dishes. Her life sounded normal. Mine did not. I said, You gave my work number to the storage company, she said. Someone needed to be reachable. I said, You forged a contract, she said. Watch your tone. I remember gripping the edge of my desk so hard my nails bent back. You used my old license. You put a debt in my name. You let a collections company call my job. Her voice stayed level. If you had been more involved after your grandmother's death, none of this would have been necessary. We were carrying a lot. That was my mother's specialty. She did not deny facts. She rearranged blame around them until everyone else looked ungrateful. I said, Take my name off. She said, The unit contains family items. Your grandmother wanted you to have some of them. You are behaving as if we robbed a bank. I wrote that down too. March 20th, 1:06 p.m. Mom compared forgery to stress. Said if I had been more involved, none of it necessary. Then I sent a short email to both my parents and copied myself at my work address and my personal one. Subject line, storage unit account in my name. I wrote, I did not sign the Buckeye Secure Storage contract for Unit C17 dated December 21st, 2023. I did not authorize use of my identification, personal information, or employment information. Remove my name from this account and pay the balance by Friday, March 22nd at 5 p.m. Do not give my information to any third parties again. That was it. Clean, plain, written. My father responded at 1:23, one line. We are trying to protect family property during an emotional period. Not denial, not apology, not confusion. I printed it. If you have ever had to become your own witness in real time, you know how exhausting it is. You're living it and archiving it at the same time. But keep listening, because what happened next is where they got greedy enough to make a mistake. And if this story is hitting somewhere tender for you, take a moment to like and subscribe. It really does help the channel. And I want more women to find stories like this when they need them. That Friday, March 22nd, at 4:56 in the afternoon, I got another email from Buckeye Secure Storage, subject line, updated responsible party acknowledgement. It was a scanned form, signed that morning, adding my name again as the primary account holder and my father as an alternate contact. The signature was not even trying to look like mine this time. It was just a fast, slashy imitation with my name typed underneath. I called the facility immediately. Victor answered. I said, "Why did you accept a new form without speaking to me?" He said, "The signer presented as your mother with family authorization to assist." I said, "My mother is not me." He made that sharp inhale. "Ms. Mercer, families help each other with units all the time. We were told there was a dispute over inherited items," I said, "and you thought that meant anyone could sign my name?" Silence, then he said, "You are welcome to come in and review the file in person." So that is what I did. Now let me take you back to Monday, March 25th, at 9:10 in the morning. Buckeye Secure Storage sits off Marietta Road behind a muffler shop and a vacant carpet warehouse. The office smelled like paper dust, air freshener, and old carpet glue. There was a fake ficus in the corner and a rack of moving boxes by the door. Leah Kincaid was behind the counter when I walked in. She had a silver ring on her thumb and a name tag turned slightly crooked. Victor came out from a back office carrying a file folder thick enough to make my pulse jump. He was in his 50s, broad-shouldered, trying very hard to sound neutral. He spread the documents on the counter one by one, original contract. Copy of my old license, gate code printout, payment history showing one initial payment of $347 on December 21st by Visa ending in 0826. The cardholder line just said D. Mercer. Then nothing. No January payment, no February payment, no March payment. There was also a move-in checklist signed by Kimberly A. Mercer and a handwritten note from December 21st at 3:36 p.m. Customer's mother present, requests account notifications to father due to daughter's work hours. I stared at that line. I said, "Who wrote this?" Victor looked over my shoulder. "Could be me? Could be Leah." Leah had gone still. I asked, "Can I have copies of all of this?" Victor said, "We can charge per page." I said, "Fine." Leah spoke then. "I can print the gate report too." Victor gave her a quick look, but she was already at the printer. The gate report mattered because it showed every access by date and time. December 21st, 3 entries. December 22nd, 2 entries. December 23rd, 1 entry. January 3rd, 4 entries. January 6th, 1 entry. February 1st, 1 entry. All during hours I was either clocked in at work or in Columbus at my cousin Tori's baby shower or at my apartment paying rent online or asleep. I had records for all of it. Then I asked, "What did the people moving the items in look like?" Victor said, "I do not remember." Leah said, before she could stop herself, "Your mother had a red Buick Enclave. Your father drove a white transit van with no side lettering." The room changed. Victor looked at her again, this time harder. I looked at Leah. "You remember that?" She swallowed. "I remember her because she corrected me on your middle name. I left off the second N when I typed Ann and she said, 'No, my daughter never answers unknown numbers, so please get it right.' I did not say anything for a second because I needed my face to stay still. There it was. Not just that my mother had done it, but that she had been detailed and calm while doing it. I said, 'Can you write that down for me?' Victor cut in. 'We do not provide witness statements.' Leah looked at him, then at me. 'I can put a note in the internal account history.' Victor said, 'Leah.' She stopped. But she had already told me enough. I paid $14.75 for copies and left with 31 pages in a brown envelope. I sat in my car for 11 minutes before starting the engine. The van detail, the middle name detail, the note about my work hours. I remember the smell of warm plastic from my dashboard and the sound of rain beginning lightly on the windshield. That is when I called Mara. Mara is my cousin on my mother's side. She is 31, a middle school art teacher in Waverly, and the kind of person who keeps quiet too long because she hates conflict more than she hates injustice. Some people mistake that for kindness. It is not always kindness. I told her what Leah had said. Mara was silent for so long I thought the call had dropped. Then she said, "I saw the church directory packet on your mother's dining room table in December." She was cutting out photos for the new member board. There were license copies too. I thought maybe they were for volunteers. I did not ask. I said, You saw my license? Yes. Why didn't you tell me? Her voice got smaller. Because your grandmother had just gotten worse. And because I knew if I asked, your mother would say I was stirring things up. Silence sat between us. Then she said, I am sorry, Kimberly. I believe she meant it, but I also knew sorry arrives late a lot. That night, I built a second folder. This one digital and color-coded, blue for storage documents, green for my location proof, yellow for family texts, red for anything involving my work. I made a spreadsheet with dates, times, source, and why it mattered. I compared my real signature from my lease, my driver's license renewal, and my payroll forms with the storage contract. The differences were obvious once they were side by side. I called a friend from community college, Elena Russo, who now worked as a paralegal in Lancaster. I did not ask her to take me to court. I did not ask if I should sue. I said, can you look at my timeline and tell me where the holes are? She came over Tuesday night with a laptop, takeout pho, and a legal pad. The broth smelled like star anise and onion in my apartment for 2 days after. She looked through everything slowly and said, you do not need a dramatic move. You need independent confirmation from people who do not care about your family. That sentence organized my whole next week. She made me a list. Get certified time cards from work for December 21st and the access dates. Pull bank statements showing where I actually was. Get the church directory coordinator to confirm who had access to member packet materials. Ask the senior apartment manager when the unit was cleared and who picked up the remaining property release. Ask the storage facility for internal notes and access logs in writing. Do everything by email if possible. She tapped the folder and said, your parents are counting on this feeling too gross and personal to say out loud. Say it out loud anyway. Now let me take you back to Wednesday, March 27th, at 11:05 in the morning. I was in my car outside Maple Grove Senior Residences with a legal pad on my passenger seat and a cinnamon roll I had not touched. The property manager there was a woman named Sharon Dempsey, 60 maybe? White bob haircut, glasses on a chain. Her office smelled like printer toner and potpourri. I told her I was Kimberly Mercer, Evelyn's granddaughter, and that I needed to confirm the apartment clean-out dates because there was a dispute about property moved from Unit 212. She said, I cannot give you financials, but I can confirm logistical things. That was enough. She checked the file and read from her screen. My grandmother's death was reported March 9th at 8:23 a.m. Keys were returned March 11th at 4:48 p.m. Final walkthrough was March 12th. Property release signed by Denise Mercer on March 11th. Additional note, 2-vehicle loadout observed by maintenance. White cargo van and red SUV, after office hours approval due to bereavement. There it was again, white van, red SUV. I asked, could you print the property release page with the signature? She looked at me over her glasses. If this is family trouble, I do not want my office in the middle of it. I said, my name was forged on another document connected to these items. Her expression changed, not warmer, more exact. She printed the page. Denise Mercer had signed her own name there, bold, confident, unmistakable. My mother had no problem using her real signature when it helped her, mine when it did not. From the parking lot, I emailed Sonia for certified time cards. She sent them within 20 minutes, December 21st, clocked in at 8:01 a.m., clocked out at 5:22 p.m. January 3rd, 8 to 5, January 6th, Saturday, no shift, but I had debit card transactions in Columbus. February 1st, 8:06 to 5:17. Every access date on the gate log had a corresponding proof point. It was almost insulting how easy it was to disprove. Then my father escalated. On Thursday, March 28th at 9:31 in the morning, Sonia forwarded me a voicemail transcript left on the office line. Male voice identified himself as Thomas Mercer, stated that his daughter Kimberly was experiencing emotional instability after a bereavement and that any debt calls should be taken seriously because she has a pattern of avoidance. I read that sentence twice. He had tried to pre-ruin my credibility at work. I did not call him. I did not scream. Instead, I asked Sonia to save the voicemail and email me the audio file. She did. That is the thing about people who have been believed for a long time. They get sloppy. They think reputation is stronger than proof. Friday, March 29th was the day I stopped trying to fix it privately. I sent a full packet to Buckeye's Secure Storage and copied both Victor and the generic company compliance email listed at the bottom of their website. Subject line, fraud dispute for Unit C17. Inside, I attached my time cards, location screenshots, card statements, photos from the office holiday luncheon with timestamps, the Maple Grove property release signed by my mother, and a side-by-side signature comparison. I wrote 4 short paragraphs. I did not sign the contract dated December 21st. I was at work during every initial access to the unit. My mother had independent access to my identification through church directory materials and signed separately as herself on related property pickup forms. My father supplied my employer information without my consent, resulting in debt collection contact at my workplace. I ended with, "Please freeze all collection activity and investigate the account notes, intake procedure, and identity verification process. No legal language, just facts." Then I waited. If you have ever sent one email that contains the whole truth and then set your phone face down because you know your life is about to shift, you know that hour after. It is not relief, it is suspension. Keep listening, because the next call was the one that changed who would say the truth out loud. Leah called me at 4:16 that afternoon from the storage office. Her voice was careful. "I'm not supposed to advise you, but compliance asked me to preserve the account history, gate logs, and any surviving front office footage. They also asked for the original intake notes." I closed my eyes, I said thank you. She lowered her voice. "For what it is worth, I knew something about that move and felt off. Your mother did all the talking. Your father kept bringing in framed things and a cedar chest. He did not once look at the paperwork. I wrote it down." Then she said, "There is one more thing. On March 10th, your mother came in and asked us to change the contact priority because, and I'm reading this from the note, daughter is flaky with bills, call employer if urgent." That line made me so angry I got calm, very calm. Not the shaking kind, the surgical kind. The unit had become more than a debt by then. It was an argument they were trying to staple to my character. Careless, greedy, unstable, irresponsible. They had built a fake paper trail to make a real story around me. That was the part I could not forgive. On Sunday, March 31st, Easter, my family had brunch at my Aunt Colleen's house on Trago Creek Road every year. Ham, deviled eggs, too many pastel paper napkins, children sticky with marshmallow fluff. I had planned not to go. Then Mara called Saturday night and said, "You need to come. Your mother has been telling everyone you abandoned Grandma's things and left your father to pay." I said, "Of course she has." Mara whispered, "Leah might come." I sat up. Why would she come to Easter? Not to Easter, Colleen invited your grandmother's pastor and a few church people after service. Leah goes to Trinity sometimes with her aunt. I only know because I saw them there at Christmas. That was enough for me. I did not bring a scene. I brought a folder. Now let me take you back to Sunday, March 31st at 2:14 in the afternoon. Aunt Colleen's dining room smelled like baked ham, pineapple glaze, and the hyacinths she always forces indoors too early. There were 21 people in the house if you counted the children. My mother was at the end of the table in a pale green cardigan, serving potatoes like a woman who had never signed another person's name in her life. At first, she kept it soft. Little comments. "Some people do not understand what practical burdens grief brings. Your father had to absorb quite a bit this month. Storage alone was a nightmare." Then my aunt's neighbor asked casually, "Did you all get Evelyn's things sorted?" And my mother smiled. She said, "We tried. Kimberly made it difficult. She would rather accuse than contribute." I set my fork down. I said, "You forged my name on a storage contract." My father looked at me then, finally, "Do not do this here." I said, "You already did this here." The room went quiet. Even the children in the den seemed to lower their volume. My mother folded her napkin once and said, "That is an ugly word for family assistance." I said, $4,380 is not assistance. Pastor Reed, who was near the kitchen doorway, looked deeply interested in the floor tile. Then the doorbell rang. Aunt Colleen said, "That must be Judith and her niece." Mara met my eyes across the table, just once. Leah came in carrying a lemon pie from Kroger in a clear dome. She had on a cream sweater and jeans and looked like she wanted to disappear. Beside her was an older woman I recognized from church but had never spoken to. This part sounds neat when I tell it now. It was not neat. It was awkward and slow and smelled like cloves and dish soap and ham. But truth does not need elegance. It just needs air. People made room, coats came off, plates were handed over. There was a minute of ordinary movement that felt unbearable. Then my mother, because she could never resist controlling a room, said lightly, "Leah works at that storage place I was telling you all about. Small world." Leah froze with the pie in both hands. My father said too fast, "Denise." But it was too late. I turned and looked at Leah. I did not rescue her. I did not trap her either. I simply said, "Would you like me to take that?" She handed me the pie and nodded. Then she said, "Actually, I should probably say something." The room got very still. If you have ever been in a room where everyone knows a line is about to be crossed and no one can stop it without admitting they know why, you know that silence. It is one of the loudest sounds there is. Leah looked at my aunt first, not at me. "I do not know what this means to your family, and I am sorry if this is a bad time. But because my workplace was mentioned, I need to clarify something. The storage account for Unit C-17 was opened by Kimberly's mother and father. Kimberly was not present. Nobody moved. My mother said that is not what happened. Leah's face flushed, but she kept going. I typed the intake notes. Ms. Mercer corrected me on Kimberly Ann with 2 N's and said, "My daughter never answers unknown numbers, so please get it right." My father's mouth opened, no sound came out. Leah reached into her purse and took out a folded copy paper sheet. Not dramatically, just carefully. Compliance asked me to bring this because there was confusion over whether I remembered correctly. This is the internal note and gate summary. She read one sentence aloud. Customer's mother present requests account notifications to father due to daughter's work hours. The room went dead quiet. Not figuratively, dead quiet. I heard the wall clock in the hallway tick 4 times. My Aunt Colleen sat down without meaning to. Pastor Reed took off his glasses and polished them on his tie. Mara looked at her lap. My brother Luke stared at my father as if seeing a version of him he had avoided naming for years. My mother said, "You should not have brought business papers into a private home." Leah answered, "You mentioned the account first." That line was so simple and so devastating that I still think about it. My father finally found his voice. "Kimberly, we were going to correct it." He only got that far, because from the kitchen doorway, another voice cut in. "No, Tom, you were not." It was Sharon Dempsey from Maple Grove. I had not known Aunt Colleen had invited her too. Apparently, she had brought a condolence casserole for the family after the memorial, and Colleen had asked her to stop by for dessert since she was part of Evelyn's last years. She had arrived 10 minutes before Leah, put the dish in the kitchen, and heard enough to understand the shape of it. She stepped forward, holding her car keys, and said, "The property release for Evelyn Mercer was signed by Denise Mercer on March 11th, white cargo van and red SUV loadout. After office hours approval, Kimberly's name was nowhere on it." That was the outsider reveal inside the outsider reveal. 2 unrelated women from 2 unrelated places, saying the same thing because facts had lined up. My mother turned toward Sharon with real anger for the first time. "This is inappropriate." Sharon said, "So was using your daughter's name." No one defended them. That is what I remember most, not my vindication, the vacuum where their authority used to be. Luke stood up from the sideboard and said very quietly, "Did you use her license too?" My mother did not answer. My father looked at the tablecloth and said, "It was temporary." Luke laughed once, a short, ugly sound. "Forgery is temporary too?" Then he walked out to the back porch and shut the door. My mother looked around the room for an ally and found none, not even Pastor Reed, not even Aunt Colleen, who had excused everything for 30 years by calling it stress. Finally, my father tried my name again, Kimberly, and stopped halfway through it. That was his reaction. Not confession, not denial. A broken start that hung in the room like something rotten. I picked up my folder from the buffet and said, "The collection calls to my job stop today. The debt comes off my name, and if any of you repeat that I abandoned Grandma's things, I will send every document to everyone in this room." Then I left. I did not slam the door. I did not cry in the driveway. I drove home with the lemon pie in my passenger seat because no one had asked for it back. The concrete price came over the next 19 days. On Tuesday, April 2nd, Buckeye Secure Storage Compliance called me at 10:23 in the morning. The woman on the phone was named Carla Jensen. She said they had completed an internal review. The account in my name had been flagged as fraud. All collection activity tied to me had been canceled. A letter would be emailed and mailed confirming I was not responsible for the $4,380.06. Then she added, "The unit has been transferred to the actual parties involved. The lien process resumes under Denise Mercer and Thomas Mercer effective today." I asked, "Do you mean in their names?" She said yes. I wrote it down and asked her to repeat it twice. The next consequence came from their church. Pastor Reed called me Wednesday evening at 7:04. The sound quality was bad and I could hear pages turning, probably his sermon notes. He said, "I owe you an apology. I heard your mother's statement at the memorial and did not interrupt it. That was a failure on my part." Then he told me the church directory committee had reviewed how member materials were handled after I forwarded the relevant emails, and Mara confirmed what she had seen. My mother was removed from the committee immediately. She was also told she would no longer handle memorial meal funds or family intake packets. That might sound small to some people. It was not small to her. My mother valued access more than praise. Access to lists, names, keys, envelopes, grief. Being quietly removed from that role in front of the women she had managed for years was a real loss. The third consequence was money. By April 9th, the storage bill had grown to $4,712.14 with penalties and lock cut fees because my parents still had not paid. The facility scheduled the lien sale for April 20th unless the balance cleared. My father called me twice that week. I let both go to voicemail. In the first message, he said, "You have made a family embarrassment out of an administrative shortcut." In the second, he said, "The contents include items your grandmother wanted you to have. If the unit is sold, that will be on your conscience." I saved both. Then I forwarded the voicemails to Luke. He called me 5 minutes later and said, "I did not know." I said, "I believe you." He was quiet. Then, they asked me for $600 yesterday, said it was for funeral overages. I closed my eyes. "Did you give it to them?" "No." "Good. There's usually one person in these families who knew some of it and not all of it." Luke had known enough to stay out of their blast radius. Easter changed that. Silence stopped being neutral once he heard the note read aloud. On Thursday, April 11th, he went with me to Buckeye Secure Storage to pick up my grandmother's recipe box and photo albums after Carla agreed in writing that specific family items could be released directly to me if both named account holders authorized it. My parents refused. So Luke paid the past due amount himself, $4,712.14 directly at the counter, and had the unit emptied the same day with 2 friends and a rented U-Haul. He told our parents by text that he would be putting the full amount on a spreadsheet and expecting repayment within 60 days. They did not repay him. By June 10th, he had stopped speaking to them except by email. Family consequence, financial consequence, both nameable. As for the unit itself, the contents were not what my mother had implied at the memorial. There were heirlooms, yes, but there were also things already missing. My grandmother's coin tin, the diamond chip ring from her first marriage, the envelope of old savings bonds she kept in the freezer in a margarine tub, gone. Not in the unit inventory, Leah had helped me reconstruct from visible boxes, not in the apartment release photos Sharon found on file. Gone before storage ever entered the picture. I never proved where those went. I am careful with what I say when I cannot prove it, but absence has a shape. If you have ever had the truth partly win and still felt hollow, you know what I mean. Justice is precise, healing is not. The last public price came in July at my cousin Mara's baby naming lunch. Smaller gathering. 14 people at a private room in a Bob Evans off US 23. My mother arrived 40 minutes late and found her place card had been moved from the head of the table to the far end near the service station. Aunt Colleen had done it. Quietly. No announcement. Just a small correction in seating that told everyone exactly what had changed. My mother sat down, looked at the card and said, "I see." That was all. No one moved it back. As for me, the practical damage took longer to clean up than the social damage. The collection company had already reported the account to one of the smaller consumer databases used by rental screening software. I found out in August when I applied for a new apartment in Grove City and got flagged for unpaid self-storage liability. Not a crime, not an eviction, just enough to make me look messy. I had to send the fraud letter, the compliance finding, and 3 explanatory emails to get approved. It took 9 days and cost me a $150 hold fee extension at the new place because the landlord would not keep the unit without updated screening. Buckeye eventually reimbursed me after I pushed, but only because Carla put in writing that the error stemmed from their intake failure. This is what people do not understand about being betrayed with paperwork. Even after you clear your name, the correction arrives in pieces. Databases update slowly, notes stay in systems. Strangers read one wrong line and decide who you are before you walk in. That is how long it takes them to erase you. Longer than one signature, longer than one dinner. Long enough to matter. By September, I had moved to Grove City, new apartment. 3rd floor, windows that faced west. The place smelled like fresh paint and cardboard for weeks. My grandmother's recipe box sat on my kitchen counter next to a basil plant I kept forgetting to water. The cedar chest stayed with Luke because I did not want to drag that much memory up 3 flights of stairs. My mother sent me one email on September 18th at 6:52 in the morning. Subject line, misunderstanding. The body said, "I regret that private family stress was interpreted in the worst possible light. If you are willing to meet, I am prepared to discuss moving forward in a healthier way." No apology, no mention of my name on the contract, no mention of the calls to my job, no mention of the memorial microphone. I did not answer that day, or the next. 3 days later, I wrote back exactly one sentence. "If you want contact with me, start by repaying Luke $4,712.14. She never replied. As of now, April of 2025, they still owe him every cent. I have not cut them off with a speech because speeches are for people who still think explanation is the missing piece. It is not. They understood what they were doing. My mother understood it when she corrected the spelling of my middle name. My father understood it when he gave them my work number. They did not need clarification, they needed consequence. I got most of that, not all. I got my name off the debt. I got the calls to my job to stop. I got independent people to say what happened in front of witnesses who had watched my parents rewrite me in real time. My mother lost her church roll. My father lost the automatic respect he used to walk around in. They were both placed on Buckeye Secure Storage's do not rent list after compliance documented the false account setup. Luke paid $4,712.14 to save what was left, and now that debt belongs to them in the only place that matters, their own family records and their own silence. But no, I did not get my grandmother's missing things back. I did not get the memorial back. I did not get the version of my family where a microphone in a church basement was not a weapon. People like endings tied in bows because they confuse finality with peace. This is not peace. It is just truth with receipts. And for me right now,